don't see this on TV much, but we are talking to senior citizens who are trying to make it on $11,000, $12,000. You know, put yourself in the place of a senior. When you're 80 or 90 years of age, you know, you need health care, you need prescription drugs, you need to eat well. You can do the arithmetic, but if you're trying to get by on $11,000 or $12,000, you can't do that. We're listening to those people. All over America, and I'm sure that right here this afternoon, we are listening to young people who say, Bernie, I went to college. I wanted to get a good education. I went to graduate school. Now I'm paying off a student debt of $50,000 or $100,000. We are listening to those people, and we do not believe that people should be punished because they wanted a good education. You don't punish. Listening to women. And what women are telling me is, Bernie, it is not right that I am making 79 cents on the dollar compared to a man. And that gap is even wider for women of color. Unacceptable. We are listening very closely about an issue that is an American tragedy, and we're going to have to deal with this tragedy. We're not going to push it under the rug. We are listening to the African American community who are telling us, how does it happen that in this country we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? Disproportionately African American and Latino. We are going to change that. We are listening to the Latino community and others, and other undocumented people who are saying, Bernie, we are tired of living in fear and living in the shadows. We need comprehensive immigration reform and a path forward. So essentially, what our campaign is about is not getting advice from millionaire campaign contributors. Sometimes if you read the papers, literally, the wording is, if you read the newspapers, candidate X's campaign donors are very, very worried about this or that. Well, I don't have millionaire campaign donors. So we are able then to listen to ordinary people. And I know a little bit about this. I grew up in a family that never had any money. My dad came to this country from Poland at the age of 17, couldn't speak English, no money. So I know a little bit about the immigration experience, and I know about growing up in a 3.5-room apartment in a rent-controlled building in Brooklyn, New York. I studied economics in college, but truthfully, the major economic lesson I learned in my life as a little kid in a family struggling to make ends meet. That is a lesson I will never forget. Now, I think all of you know, if you know anything about American history, what you know is that change, real change, never comes from the top down. It always comes from the bottom up. Real change signs the bill or a Supreme Court renders a decision. Those are the results of the work done by millions of people in the grassroots level. You all know, I know you all know, that when our country was first formed by very brilliant people who broke away from England, at that point the only people who could vote were rich white guys. You all know that? Remember that? Yeah. So the struggle of America from the inception, from the creation of this country, was to broaden democracy, going from wealthy landowners, white landowners, to include all of our people. And my God, what a strenuous, difficult struggle that has been. The struggle for civil rights in this country didn't come from a few people on top. It came from millions of African Americans and their white allies. They said, you know what? Segregation and racism and bigotry is not what this country is supposed to be about. The struggle for workers' rights. It came when workers said, sorry, we're not going to be treated like animals. We're not going to be working 7 days a week. We have rights and we're going to form a union. Came from workers standing together. And the struggle for women's rights. We forget, you know, how easy it is to forget. 100 years ago from today where we are. Not a long time in history, 100 years ago, women did not have the right to vote. They couldn't. We forget the idea of women becoming doctors or lawyers or scientists. Not in a million years. Women were supposed to stay home and have babies. That was their job. But women said, sorry, not anymore. To say women will not be second-class citizens in the United States of America. And if we were sitting here, literally 10 years ago, not a long time at all, 10 years ago, and somebody jumped up and said, you know, I think in America, people have the right to love whoever they want to love. Somebody said, you know, and I think people, you know, if they are gay, they have a right to be married. And I think that will happen in 50 states in America. Somebody said that 10 years ago. The guy next to him would have said, what are you smoking? Which raises a whole other issue. But how did it happen? This is what revolution is about in a sense. I go in my own state of Vermont, and I love you all to come up to Vermont. We're a beautiful small state. I go to the conservative parts of my state and I say, well, what do you guys think about gay marriage? For young people, by and large, it is no longer even an issue. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, Republicans were running these ugly ads. They're not running them anymore. You know why? Because they know those ads would backfire. The people of America have changed. So what's my point? Here is my point. My point is a simple point. Change takes place when people outgrow the status quo. When they say, sorry, segregation is not what this country is about. Racism is not what this country is about. Homophobia is not what this country is about. Sexism is not what this country is about. And that always takes place from the bottom up. And sometimes, let's be clear, it's always very easy to lead the parade when change takes place. Now, oh, it is not hard to talk about gay rights or civil rights. That's not hard now. 30, 40, 100 years ago, it was damn hard. And we honor those people who had the courage to talk about issues that are important. And now we are at a moment in American history where we have got to learn from our past history, and we have got to be pushing forward in a way that makes some people very, very uncomfortable. What we have got to be talking about is that we have a government right now that, sadly enough, is not there to represent working families or the middle class, but is beholden to wealthy campaign contributors and the big money interests. And do not kid yourself. You know, when you talk about the struggles for civil rights and the struggles for women's rights, gay rights and women's rights, this struggle that we are engaged in right now, we are taking on the most powerful people in the world. Do not kid yourself. Wall Street, and I know something about this, Wall Street has endless supplies of money, and I mean endless. You know, normal human beings say, well, you know, there's a certain amount of money we have. There is no certain amount of money. These guys have endless amounts of money to do what they want to do. They do not have the against. Let me give you an example of one of the areas where my opponent, Secretary Clinton, and I have a strong disagreement. No. I respect Secretary Clinton. We can have differences. Now, an issue that is of enormous consequence to the American people, but that the media really does not cover it all. And I want you also, when we think about making change in America, understand the role of corporate media, who understand who owns corporate media, understands the intrinsic conflicts of interest, what will be discussed, what will not be discussed. For example, we have had, for 30, 40 years, a disastrous set of trade policies in America. Now, trade is not a sexy issue. And a lot of people don't even know what I mean by trade. What do I mean by trade? For the young people, let me just say this. There was a time in this country, 40, 50 years ago, when if you went into a department store, you would buy products manufactured in the United States of America. And the workers who made those products often made a good living with good benefits. If you are on an assembly line in Detroit, Michigan, producing an automobile, you know what? You made good wages, you had good benefits, and you had a good union working with you. But what has happened over the last many years is we have seen factory after factory shut down in America. Those jobs go to low-wage countries. Corporations go all over the world, figuring where they can get the cheapest labor possible. They leave Mexico, where wages are low, because they can find cheaper wages in China. They leave China, because wages get a little too high, to go to Vietnam. They are chasing the lowest wages in the world, and then they want to bring their products back into this country. Now, way back in the early 1990s, when I was elected to the Congress for Vermont, I looked at these trade proposals and I understood that American workers should not be forced to compete against desperate people making pennies an hour all over the world. I went to Mexico. I went to a region in Mexico. It's called the Maquiladora region, which is a special tax zone. And I saw the workers there who were working in these shiny, beautiful American factories. Beautiful factories. And I went to visit their homes. But you know what? They weren't living in homes.